Hi, and congratulations on completing week 4 and reaching the halfway point in our course. And welcome to week 5, Understanding Hebrew Poetry, which is our segment to really explore the Psalms, but we're going to explore them a little bit. Well, we're going to explore them from a biblical hermeneutical perspective by looking at them as Hebrew poetry. So our goals this week are to analyze parallel structures within Hebrew poetry. Add lesson objectives here. So sorry about that. I'll fix it in a minute. So analyze parallel structures within Hebrew poetry. Apply the interpretive methods utilized in the evaluation of poetry, which may be new to you. And then to evaluate different psalm categories, identifying elements for each type. So we're going to be looking at, in American poetry, we have meter, or haiku. I guess that's not American, but in types of modern poetry. We have rhyme. We have acrostic, where you start with a different letter on each. And to understand Hebrew poetry, it's really not by rhyming, which we wouldn't see anyway because it's in Hebrew and we're reading in English. But it is more by the use of parallelism, where two elements are poetically put together that are either opposites or the same synonyms. And sometimes we actually may have meter, which would not translate to English. And we do have acrostic, where, in fact, it uses the Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey in order, the Hebrew alphabet. And we're not going to be looking at that. But we're going to spend some time on different types of parallelism. And to be able to understand those types, you'll need to watch the lecture, and you'll also need to do the reading out of the textbook. So on a handout, create a list of the types of parallelism in Psalm 22 and explain your decisions. You should identify 6 instances of figurative language and 2 instances of inter-psalm connections between Psalm 22 and other psalms. A worksheet is provided under your course resources, which will help to organize the assignment. Do be sure to include 2 to 3 paragraphs in a conclusion discussing your findings and reflecting upon how to apply your findings to a modern church. In other words, after understanding Psalm 22's parallelism, how can that help you in discussing this psalm or teaching this psalm in a Bible study format within the church? So here's just an example to get you started. Psalm 22:2. My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. Now there are 2 types of parallelism found in this verse. We find that by day is contrasted to by night. Now, what would you think is happening here? If someone is saying, I cry out by day, and by night, blank, blank, blank. Well, in this case, it is most likely that the author of the psalm is saying always. It's always this way, because by day you don't answer, and by night I find no rest. So by using the contrasting or synonymous parallelism of by day and by night, the author is saying that all the time, both day and night, I have this problem. In the same way, synonymous parallelism is found do not answer and no rest. There is synonymous parallelism between the first line and the second line, day and night, and do not answer and no rest. Assignment 5.2 is a psalm classification worksheet. And I'm going to give you on that worksheet several different psalms, and I want you to identify what psalm type they are, and you'll find the types in your reading, and then outline the elements supporting your classification. At a conclusion, summarizing your findings. So how do we do that? Psalm 3, O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cry aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. I lay down and slept. I woke, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God. For you strike my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessings be on your people. Now, this type of psalm follows the classic elements of a lament, as outlined in the fee reading. A lament is a psalm where the writer is under extreme suffering, but the writer trusts that God will intervene. The elements are an address, which we find in verse 1, a complaint that we find in verses 1 and 2, trusting statements that we find in verses 3 to 6, deliverance in 7 part A, David cries out to the Lord for help, assurance at the end of verse 7, details on how God will come to David's aid, and then finally a praise of God, praising God for his help and deliverance. So in your assignment, I'm wanting you to classify the psalm on the worksheet, and then I'm wanting you to identify the components that support your classification, and then a discussion of how those components aid in your understanding of the psalm. So once we know that a lament is crying out to God, but needs to end with faith in God, then we can understand that in our own lives, it's fine to cry out to God. It's fine to be honest with him and tell God why we're not happy in our current circumstance. But we also need to recognize that God is sovereign and that God is in control and that God will come in faith to our present situation. So a lament includes all of those components, and it helps us to see the honesty of the one writing the psalm and also their faith. Then finally, we have a discussion post to evaluate a modern psalm. And I did this because I thought it would be kind of fun for you to take a contemporary Christian worship song that is meaningful to you. I be sure to share either a link to the words or give us the words in your post. And then essentially redo that analysis you just completed with what type of psalm is this, even though it's a modern song, what type of psalm classification might it be, and what are some examples of parallelism that you find in the psalm. So you might want to provide examples of parallelism or instances of figurative language, or you might classify the type of song as a hymn, thanksgiving, or lament, praise, wisdom, etc. And then be sure to provide the lyrics to your song in the post, or at least a link to the lyrics, so others can discuss your findings with you. And what I wanted to try to do, this is an application where you've now learned how to analyze the parallelism, and you've learned how to analyze the type of psalm. So now let's take it out of the Bible, but still in a Christian sphere, and look at a modern worship song. Last thoughts, be sure to put your name in the file as you upload. Call me or email me with any questions. As you can see by the background, I'm still in Raleigh. Today, I'll be flying back to Antigua in my plane on Saturday and Sunday, so I'll be harder to reach over the weekend. I'll be in Fort Lauderdale Saturday night and then hopefully Antigua Sunday night, so I will be checking my email and checking in on the discussion posts over the weekend in the evenings. So have a great day. Thanks for all your hard work this semester. And we're over the hump now. We're into week 5, and we're moving into our last 4 weeks of the course. Talk to you soon.